So we don't really have that anymore. A lot of our reads from the meta are going to come from solo queue. They're going to come from scrims.
So I'm here with the victorious Thinkcard, the NRG head coach. Thank you for joining me. Talk to me a little bit about this game. There seemed to be a lot of focus on the top side, especially early with lane ganks, tower dives. We haven't seen much top lane focus this past week. Is that something you guys are specifically doing? Is it? It almost seems like bot lane is a lot more important. So talk to me about that thought process.
Yeah, we picked Sanity K, knowing that when they picked Rumble, that we're basically going to be able to have a lot of resources allocated to top lane because Sanity K is pretty self-sufficient. And we kind of knew that Huhi and FBI will be able to do well just because they're very good at the champions. So they were just they were put on an island, able to get an early lead themselves because they're able to freeze and then Lucian Melia take an early base. So they did their job really well, which freed up Contracts to just pressure topside a lot, which we've seen him do in LCS last split as well with the Rel, doing ganks on Fudge, especially in playoffs. So we just knew that if they got Rumble, we wanted to play something like Jason to it, and our jungler would be freed up a lot to be able to spend a lot of time topside.
Okay, and it seemed like you guys had a very strong sort of poking composition. Was that something you guys had planned in the beginning, or is that something that sort of happened throughout draft?
We definitely planned that when we're first pick Corki, they can get like a pretty good teamfight comp if they want to get like a Rumble, layer that with some CC. But at the end of the day, our Corki's going to have a Maw. He's probably going to be against an Azir or a magic damage dealing champion. So the Corki's going to be king of side lane because he is a Maw and he's against Rumble and Azir. And we'll always be able to get tempo playing through side. And then once we get a group, if we do have the Jace, we're just going to be really outranged. And Azir is a champion, very strong. It's still a good champion, even if it is outranged, but it's way, way weaker when it's not the longest range champion on the map. So that's why champions like Jace are good into it. Champions like Poke Ferris, champions like Corki. And so once we saw the Azir, we knew that if we got Jace in the 4-5, we were just going to take it to outrange them.
Okay, and that's what happened. Halfway through that game, it almost seemed like the team lost focus. Dove gets his quadra kill, buys a bunch of items, they get the Baron. How were you backstage? Were you like sweating? Were you like, okay, I know I got this?
It's always stressful watching as a coach because honestly, you're pretty powerless in the moment. But I thought that FBI definitely he emerged as just like the calming voice because even though they got the Baron, we're still up like 5,000, 6,000 gold. We have a fantastic composition. And so maybe one or two players were stressed, but FBI was like, it's completely fine, guys. Like, just defend against the Baron, which we did really well. He also did a good job with that. And then after that, there's still some stressful moments, but I'm pretty happy overall with just how the weekend went because we have such good learning points to be able to grow on in the future.
All right, and yesterday you guys did lose to C9. How's the team atmosphere after that?
Pretty productive. I think overall everyone knows that there were a lot of gameplay things that could have been better. And we've went into this weekend just knowing that we're going to get exposed. There are going to be weaknesses that are going to pop up that weren't so easy to spot in scrims. And as long as we learn from them, take it one day at a time, take it 1 week at a time, get better every week, we're going to be in a good spot to be able to do well in playoffs. So no one was that stressed at all. It's all a learning experience at this point.
All right, and NRG is notorious for having horrible scrim record. I think even Palafox was joking about it during World. He was like, when we went on stage and we were winning, we were like, wait, we're actually winning these games?
Yeah.
So how do you like facilitate learning as a coach when, you guys aren't really winning very much?
I think it's definitely a balance. I think it's the ideal situation is that your scrim environment is as close to as possible, as close to your stage environment as possible. And some players kind of deal with that in different ways. Some players are way more hyper on stage and they talk a lot more. Some players are way more risk averse on stage and they talk a lot less. So it's all about players really finding that balance. And over time, we are getting closer and closer to having our scrim results match our stage results. But I do think in general, like some players are clutch players that are going to play better on stage. Things are going to click a lot harder. You're always going to have that little extra level of focus, even if you try really hard to emulate that in practice. And that extra level of focus might be like what the team needs to like get over the hump and really like get rid of those small mistakes that might plague you in scrims. So I wouldn't say it's a good thing. I think that teams do need to take scrims more seriously in general and emulate the stage environment. But we do a good job of getting stuff out of our scrims when we lose, and we do a good job of getting just like things that we need to work on from our games. And that is something that I'm proud of our players and coaching staff to be able to do.
All right. A new player that joined, you guys only made one change and you brought in Huhi. How has
Yeah.
integrating him into the NRG system been going?
I think it's growing. I don't think it's easy for Jay. I think that who he is Jay, but I don't think it's easy for Jay because he was for sure the primary shot caller on Golden Guardians. If he said something, they would do it. If he wanted the game to be played a certain way, the team would adhere to that. Whereas he's coming into our systems, and I do think that Jay has a ton of great points, and there are a lot of things that we want to do his way, and we think that like if we follow them his way, like we'll get very consistent results on stage. But we have very creative players as well who like looking for angles, are very confident in their skirmish ability. So I do think who he's really trying to like slot himself in and figure out like his role and his voice and just how we and align how we want to play the game in general as a team. So I wouldn't say it's been easy for Huhi, but it's something that we're growing well together. And I think that we'll be in a spot when whether it's halfway through the split or towards the end of the split where we're all really happy with just the way that we play macro, and it'll be a lot more organized in terms of our communication in game.
All right. When Huhi was rumored, I guess, by Sheep Esports to join NRG, on the NRG subreddit, a lot of people, I was surprised to say like, oh, we don't like Huhi being on this team because he has such a big ego and he's gonna want to play the game his way. And if he wants to join NRG, he needs to learn to like kind of bite his tongue. So I wanted to sort of like kind of address that, and it's I didn't know he was the primary shot caller on GG, but I can see why it would be difficult for him to really integrate with like already having shot callers. Who does a lot of the like in-game leading? Is it mixed? There's like specific roles for each person?
See, that's the thing is like with our team, like we do have kind of like players do have like different strengths in terms of their shot calling. But what's very interesting about our team is like say Contract is having a really good game, he'll just be in the zone and like he'll be able to kind of call out a lot of these things and he'll be like the primary shot caller for a lot of those games. Whereas there are some times where Palafox is in the zone and he'll do those things. So I wouldn't say we have like a designated shot caller. It's more free flowing and like we're able to kind of go through the checklist together as a team to figure out what we want to do. Whereas like I said, Huhi was used to kind of having to do all of that at Golden Guardians and just people listening to him. So I kind of missed that when people weren't happy about us picking up. Oh, I just turned my camera off.
Oh.
1 second. Yeah, I must have missed that when people weren't happy about us picking up Huhi because for the most part, I thought it was pretty positive. I think Huhi and Vic play really well together, and I don't think he has a big ego at all. I think he's very mature in the way that he comes to arguments. He's very mature in the way that he gives and takes criticism. And for the environment as a whole, I think he's very productive to have. So I don't agree with the people who are saying that at all.
All right. Last couple of questions here. The LCS has vastly reduced the transition time. And for the players, they're sort of doing draft and then kind of sitting around 5-10 minutes and then getting into game. How has that affected your strategy? Also, the other changes obviously being on live patch. Those two things, have they changed how you approach the game?
Yeah, so I'll start with the drafting process. I think the only thing it really changes is you just have a little bit extra time to prep your level 1 plans, your early game plans, your routing, and all that stuff in game because instead of just drafting and having 1 minute where we get to talk about a team and plan out what we want to do, now we have like 5 to 10 minutes. So we get to see all the champions and then we get to decide, okay, this is what they can do level 1, this is what we can do level 1, what are the ideal ward setups we want, what type of early objectives do we want to look for? What are the key things we're looking for in the early game? Are they able to base on this timer? Or if we stop their base, then do we have pressure? So we really get to map out a lot of the early game, which for teams that plan and are good at planning, it's very useful for them. And the second thing was live patch. I think it's a double-edged sword. We're very good at using data as a coaching staff, and we're very good at kind of looking at other regions and finding out these combos of champions that have very high win rates or aren't very good together, and just teams that are performing very well on these styles. So we don't really have that anymore. A lot of our reads from the meta are going to come from solo queue. They're going to come from scrims, and it's going to be more so player feel and player opinion instead of being having all this data to rely on. So I think it just purely depends on how confident you are in your players and how confident you are that they have a good read of what is strong and what isn't strong. And for us, I think it's just going to be a balance, and I think we'll get there. I think every team is probably just figuring out the ideal balance to figure out, how are we going to draft? What's the ideal way to play the game if we don't have all this data to back up our opinions? All right. Shout outs to my coaching staff. They're the best. And shout outs to all my players and all of the NRG fans. To the fans, like, it makes it so much easier for us to do our job when you guys are super nice to us and you guys have such good things to say about our players. So always very happy when I see what you guys have to say about our players.
All right, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you guys for watching. It's been really fun having this experience of just doing LCS interviews through the LCS, like post game. I have not done this before. This was week 1. Honestly, I think my interviews kind of sucked. I think day 2 were a lot better than day 1 this week, but hopefully I keep improving. You guys have any feedback, let me know, and make sure to hit that subscribe button because I am trying to sign up for the LPP and I need 1,000 subs, so keep them coming.